No BS Nutrition is learning about intersectionality, and we're not mad about it.
This is a 1-hour food fight against diet culture and its fake science messages.
Instead, we're passionate about celebrating real wellness.
I'm registered dietitian Hannah McGee.
And I'm neuroscience PhD student Tariq Youssef, and this is No BS Nutrition.
Hey guys!
Hello everybody!
Welcome back to the No BS Nutrition podcast. We're so happy to have you here. I was just showing Tariq that I'm wearing my period sweatshirt for all of the people who menstruate today because I just
it's
can't.
so weird. We often think about how this sounds like a tangent, but it's not. We often think about how bad it is that certain corporations have monopolies on an industry.
Right.
Like we think about how Walmart takes away from big businesses, or we think about how Amazon's taking away from local shopping.
Right.
Moving everything online. But we never think about how some authors have monopolies in their industry. You know
right.
What I mean?
I've never thought about that.
There actually are a lot of really awesome, inclusive, and if you're looking for them, female authors that write fantasy. Octavia Butler, Ursula K. Le Guin are two that I've read.
Okay.
But there's so many more. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to just, with the new generation, stop reading them the Harry Potter books and just read them really awesome other
Yeah, I agree. I was actually thinking about this earlier when I put my sweater on, and I was thinking about that tweet that author put out. And it reminded me because I figured we would touch on this on the podcast, but we've talked about Harry Potter on the podcast before. Remember
yeah, that's true. We sorted ourselves.
Yeah. And
now we're sorting ourselves.
Totally.
Again.
We're totally sorting ourselves.
We're sorting
again.
it out.
Yeah.
There is there's that debate of separate the artist from the art. You know what I mean?
Right.
The art now belongs to the public. And
right.
I don't know. I'm sure. I don't know. I'm not the end all arbiter for that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there were so many other things that I hadn't thought about before that people were bringing up. Like how the one Asian character in the whole series, she decided to call Cho
I
Chang,
saw that
which I'd
tweet.
never thought about before. I was like...
Again, I didn't really read Harry Potter, and I did watch the movies once. We've talked about this, but I don't really remember. So
everyone who hasn't read Harry Potter or watched the movies is like... You know, I knew the whole time.
Yeah, I'm so woke. That is why I didn't read Harry Potter.
Finally, those people who were berated for not being cool for so long because they weren't joining the bandwagon are well, look at yourself now.
Totally. I know. I saw that too. So funny.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's I was also thinking there were a couple tweets like this too, and I felt this way. They were last week I was just a mild-mannered Twitter user, and now I'm a police abolitionist and a communist. Just 1 week later, after some intensive
no kidding.
Some intensive soul searching and learning and listening. But I mean to say that conversation about Harry Potter drove I guess a little bit of it mobilized some more trans activism, I guess. There were some donations being made to trans supporting charities and things like that. So that was a good thing to come out of it, is that some charities got highlighted and some donations were made. And,
that's good to hear.
Yeah, to serve underserved trans people.
Right. All right. So this week we are doing something a little bit different. Is that right, T?
I know, I'm nervous. I don't like changing.
Oh, don't be nervous.
I also feel this is, I don't know. This is either season 2, episode 11, or it's season 3, episode 1.
Yeah, we haven't really.
Our season 1 was 10
Yeah.
episodes, so
Yeah, we.
I don't know if they're going to be 10 episode batches or not.
We didn't decide
I don't know if
this
that
yet
really
or
means
discuss this
anything.
yet. But I was thinking, honestly, we'll have this discussion. I was thinking.
Everyone knows, like, you're part of this.
Yeah.
Like, this is a town
Weigh
hall.
in if
We
you
want to,
want
like, we're like, just imagine we're like at the dinner table,
Right.
you know, just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was thinking, I think we should kind of keep it going with season 2. Like, I think
Right.
season 1 was, like, we've talked about, it was kind of our trial run. We were testing things out. It was our first time podcasting where, you know, we were just getting a feel for it. And so we did 10 episodes and then we took a break and then we came back. But I feel like
Yeah.
we're kind of on a roll right now.
I feel like we're on a
Yeah.
roll. I also would love, like, if we were to do something like, it's season 3 now, I would love it to be like, you know, graphic designers slide into
Yeah,
the DMs,
absolutely.
like rebranding,
Yeah,
like
I'm
something
into
cool,
that.
something different.
Yeah, we'll keep going with season 2 for now. I think we've got a good groove going, and then totally we'll like when we're ready for season 3, we'll totally have a little rebrand.
Yeah.
So definitely give us some
Totally.
recommendations if you know some graphic designers or
The podcast's going to be in 3D. Oh my God, hologram podcast, first in the world.
in
Kickstarter,
the
help
world.
us.
oh my god.
So yes, Hannah was alluding to the fact that
Yeah.
I'm trying to like shake things up.
We
a
are
little bit,
shaking
and,
things up. There is
If you're nervous about that, just like hold my hand through this, like
take
while
a
we're
deep
talking.
breath.
It's
Yeah.
okay.
Like,
Yeah, take a
prepare
deep breath.
yourselves.
So, yeah, everybody, please sit down. If you're driving, like pull over. This is this is going to be huge. It would normally be my week to do a
Yeah.
BS of the week.
Yeah.
Again, like put your foot on the brake, like center yourselves, hands on your knees, take a
Yeah.
deep breath, feel every part of your body. This week, I want to do something different. I want to do my first, I'm going to call it my brain bite. So this is
I love
brain
it.
bite number 1. So the reason for this is, you know, I research neuroscience and I often find these topics that I want to talk about that aren't necessarily BS topics, but they're neuroscience topics about nutrition or like research
Yeah.
in nutrition that kind of takes a neuroscientific perspective. And obviously I love promoting nutrition information on here with Hannah. But I also was thinking, like, I am really interested in promoting more neuroscience literacy. So it would be good to, I don't know, try this interesting segment, hopefully. And I recently found a paper, a really recent paper, just came out in 22nd of April, called Long-Term Dietary Flavonoid Intake and Risk of Alzheimer's Disease and Related Dementias in the Framingham Offspring Cohort. So there was the Framingham Offspring Cohort is an ongoing longitudinal study, so it means that it's happening over a span of a very long time, years, that's looking at people's health outcomes with relation to a bunch of lifestyle factors.
Right.
So this was just published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition a couple weeks ago. And when I was writing this up, I was like, okay, like keep it to 10 minutes or whatever, like, yeah, just like short, like really like hit them where, you know, where it's interesting. So I made a lot of notes,
Okay.
unfortunately, so I'm going to try to go fast, but I'm sorry if it's a little
Oh my
bit longer
god,
than
don't
I
be
thought.
sorry. Go for
Okay.
it. Brain bite.
So, brain bite, yeah. Sound effects. Oh my god, we have sound effects for it's like
Brain bite.
crunch.
Oh my god, I
Brain
love
bite. Okay, so Alzheimer's and related diseases are called dementias, and related diseases called dementias are diseases where the patient suffers from symptoms, you know, kind of related to deteriorating capacity of the brain. So you see memory loss, personality changes, maybe the other consequences that ultimately lead to the patient losing the ability to care for themselves at the most extreme circumstance. So this is when we need people to live in long-term care home facilities where there's staff who can constantly look out for them if a family member can't do that thing. So they are really, they can be very detrimental diseases. So Alzheimer's is the most common form of dementia, of these like memory loss, brain impairment diseases. And currently the most effective way to diagnose Alzheimer's is actually through post-mortem analysis of the brain. So it's very difficult for us to tell if someone has Alzheimer's. Well, clinicians can presume that somebody has Alzheimer's because of the symptomology, but to absolutely prove that it's definitely Alzheimer's, we actually need to look at the anatomy of the brain. And the cases, there is some imaging research that's trying to allow us to diagnose this while people are still alive. But the most effective way currently is to look at the brain in actuality, and unfortunately we have to wait until that person passes. So what we're looking for are physical clusters of proteins. So these proteins kind of clump together, and we call them plaques and tangles. And you find them in and around the brain cells, the neurons. And these literal clumps, you can imagine, when they build up, disrupt the regular functioning of the brain. So they don't allow neurons to communicate as they normally would, and they can lead to things like, the death of those neurons.
Right.
So there's a lack of communication between the different brain cells, and then they end up dying. So this brain atrophy happens, and that is the reason why the brain decreases in its normal functioning in Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, and you get all these symptoms. So unfortunately, not just because of the complexity of the disease, has it been difficult to diagnose, but it's also been very difficult to find effective treatments. So the study actually cites that by 2050, 14 million Americans are likely to have Alzheimer's disease.
Wow.
Because people are living longer, and it's a disease that seems to be associated with progressive age. So one thread that the research has been tugging at is knowing the risk factors for Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. And of course, in this vein, the research has been conducted there has been previous research on how diet might influence the development of Alzheimer's and related dementias. So probably the diet that gets the most press, I think. And I mean diet as in like what we eat, not dieting for weight loss, is the Mediterranean diet. So probably people have if they're not aware of what the Mediterranean diet, I think it's probably would you say, Hannah, it's the diet that gets the most press?
Oh, absolutely.
In terms of health?
In terms of health, yeah. And I feel like it's the most well-researched as well in terms of a lot of health outcomes. And we kind of touched on that in our intermittent fasting episode because I kind of compared the outcomes of intermittent fasting to the Mediterranean diet. So yeah, I would say yes, for sure. So
apparently the Mediterranean diet, and I'm going back to the title of the article here, is really high in compounds called flavonoids. Okay. So Mediterranean diet is high in the consumption of things like olive oil, beans, fruits, vegetables, fish, moderate consumption of wine. And flavonoids are found, different kinds of flavonoids are found in these foods. So what is a flavonoid? So it's a plant chemical. There's a very diverse array of them, partly responsible for the color, the pigmentation of fruits and vegetables. And through research, it's been shown that flavonoids can actually interact with the molecular mechanisms in our cells responsible for preventing cell death. So flavonoids might actually be binding to specific receptors that are changing the way that cells end up deciding whether or not they're going to continue living or die.
I should know this. Are they an antioxidant? That sounds to me like you're describing an antioxidant.
So there's also research that shows that they have antioxidant properties. So basically, for people listening, they would be targeting harmful chemicals called reactive oxygen species that might be promoting cell death when we don't want cell death. And they might be somehow taking away the function of those reactive oxygen species. The research on flavonoids seems to show that rather they might be having these antioxidant effects, but it's probably a more direct relationship between the actual molecular mechanisms in the cells and how they lead to cell death or not. There's also research to show that flavonoids are acting on the immune system in order to help prevent excessive cell death as well.
Cool.
So back in my day, a long time ago, I actually did some of this research myself. So I looked at the effects of a flavonoid called epigallocatechin 3 gallate. So it's a EGCG for short, and it's found in green tea. And I looked at the effect of it being able to decrease the autoimmune action found in a mouse model of multiple sclerosis. So in MS, the immune system is overactive. Sometimes that's called an autoimmune disease or disorder. And it seems like flavonoids might have a way of stopping that autoimmune activity by affecting the immune system for healthier outcomes. So it's kind of the same idea that flavonoids might be working to reduce cell death. So this topic was very interesting to me. I wanted to talk about it because I kind of had an idea of how it all worked a little bit anyway. So basically, what now? So there's a lot of research in mice, obviously, about all of this. And what's been done in humans is really preliminary. So that's where this paper wanted to go. They wanted to look at some human data. So they were really lucky that there's this ongoing study already taking place, the Framingham study that I mentioned before. And one of the things that the Framingham study recorded, is the participants' dietary intake. So they could look at dietary intake and then correlate that to the incidence of Alzheimer's disease in this cohort of people. And I'm talking a lot of people. Like, there's over 5,000 people in this Framingham study. And actually, it's gone through generations now. So the Framingham study now incorporates not only the initial cohort of people, but their children.
Well, so that's what I was curious, because the name Framingham, I recognized immediately in my mind, because I don't know if you've ever heard of, and I'm sure some people listening may have heard of it, but the Framingham risk score. And basically that is like, it's almost like a little questionnaire, and you, based on certain modifiable risk factors or like lifestyle factors, it calculates your risk for like having I believe, I don't want to be wrong, but if I can remember right, it's your risk for having like a cardiovascular event.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So
I'm going to look that up. That's really interesting.
I feel like it's probably the same
it's out of the
Framingham
same study.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
No. Yeah. So they collected data the data of participants that were free of Alzheimer's disease and related dementias at their first assessment, and then were of an appropriate age at a baseline level to see the risk of Alzheimer's disease by around 70 years of age at present day in the study. And remember, it's an ongoing study, so there's hopefully going to be more data coming out of this about this kind of thing. So there was a questionnaire that recorded the frequency of foods consumed over the past 12 months, and they were assessed every 4 years. So there's a list of like 126 foods on the list that people were checking off, and you check off around how much you eat of it, of a serving size. You could also write in some foods that weren't on the list. So they tried to be as comprehensive as possible. It can never be perfect with self-assessment or self-reporting.
Yeah, for sure.
But they did try to be pretty comprehensive. And participants were also asked to provide information on whether or not they used dietary supplements, the breakfast cereals that they always ate, the types of fats and oils used, the frequency of consumption of fried foods. So there's a lot of data that can be used for different outcomes, for looking at different outcomes. So the other arm of the study, participants were also assessed for the development of Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. And this was established through a variety of different methods. There was testing done, for example. So if there was a decline in test scores of like a neuropsychological test conducted every 4-year period, then those participants were referred to a physician. And the participants were then further assessed for symptoms of dementia, or more specifically Alzheimer's, by those clinicians. Right. So basically, what they found was individuals with the highest intake of flavonoids and related compounds, they assessed a bunch of different, they're called phytochemical compounds, ended up having lower risk for Alzheimer's disease and related dementias relative to the individuals with the lowest intakes. So they kind of saw a similar similar trends. So that was just for related dementias.
Right.
They also saw a similar trend for the incidence of Alzheimer's disease, specifically with the consumption of chemicals related to flavonoids. And altogether, they kind of saw these decreases at around 30%, which, although not all of the correlations were statistically significant, there did seem to be this trend of at least around 30% of a decline in incidence rate of Alzheimer's disease if you were at the very highest end of consumption of flavonoids and related compounds. Kind of these foods that are best known for being part of the Mediterranean diet. So obviously there's lots of limitations to this study. Of course, not just because of the self-reporting of the nutrition questionnaires. The size of the cohort is really good, but of course we'd want, it's like always terrible, but you always want more people, even though there's thousands. The thing to take in mind, another thing to consider, which actually the authors cited, is that the incidence of Alzheimer's disease was relatively low. It was like in the low hundreds.
Wow.
So they didn't have a group, like a very, very large incidence of Alzheimer's disease that they could find really high statistical significant correlations for. So you almost want a bigger starting group so that, I mean, unfortunately, it sounds kind of glib, but so that more people might have the chance of developing Alzheimer's disease, so that you can actually see those mathematical correlations with more statistical power. So something I thought that was interesting to keep in mind was that, and this is something we touch on a lot. So this is a quote: relative to those people in the lowest category of flavonoid intake, participants with the highest intake were older, more likely to be women, educated, physically active, consumed more calories, and had an overall better diet quality. So what this tells me is that people who were consuming more flavonoids, or like foods more related to the Mediterranean diet, were people who, well, for one, cared more about just like the common approaches to healthy lifestyle, including movement and healthier diet. And they didn't look at, and see, they controlled for these kinds of things when they looked at the correlations, but the reality is that just being physically active, being an educated woman, like those are not the only confounding variables to, privileged lifestyles of a high socioeconomic bracket. There's so many other things that we ought to consider when trying to tease out these correlations between whether or not flavonoids actually lead to reduced risk of Alzheimer's disease. So yes, they did control for some things. Their statistical models were made with some conservatism, and by that I mean that they weren't trying to like bluff their way to finding statistical significance in their correlations. They were trying to control for variables they thought would be important to control for, like whether or not somebody who consumed more flavonoids in fact was just exercising more, so they ended up just having less Alzheimer's disease incidence because they were just generally healthier. They did try to control for those things, but I'm just saying that there's a lot more variables than that. So obviously, of course, an article like this comes out, it leads to popular science articles with clickbait titles like, so I'm just grabbing a headline here: "This small diet change can have major brain-boosting benefits. Here's why you need to start adding berries, apples, and tea to your diet ASAP." So, I don't know. The person who wrote this shouldn't be like completely chastised for it, but it is clickbait.
Totally.
First of all, I don't know if the study found brain-boosting effects. They weren't looking
what is
for that.
Brain-boosting? Oh, God, it just sounds like...
Can you call potential decreased risk for Alzheimer's
boosting your brain?
Boost?
Yeah. Clickbait.
I don't know. And yes, there seems to, and this is like, for once, I'm saying like, oh, there's a dietary change, and maybe there is actually some real positive effect, like related to a very specific health outcome. We're only talking about decreased risk of Alzheimer's here. I'm not talking about anything else, right? So maybe these foods high in flavonoids might decrease the risk of Alzheimer's disease. There's a lot of work still yet to be done about this sort of thing. But I still think this title is very clickbaity,
I
saying
agree.
like you need to start adding these foods to your diet ASAP. The paper also showed that those people with high incidences of flavonoid intake were taking part in other healthy lifestyle choices. Yes, they did control for those statistically and still found an effect of the flavonoids in some circumstances, not all. But there's other things that we didn't test for. So I do think the title is clickbaity, and I think unfortunately a lot of science communication is vulnerable to this kind of pitfall.
Yeah, like they
it's very surface level without explaining the complexities.
Yeah, it just kind of pinpoints.
And I think there's a way to do it in between.
One study, or like kind of drags like what one study said.
And just pushes it to the extreme.
Exactly, and just kind of makes a connection, but almost blows it out of proportion. Like, eat these foods to
I think
boost
there's a middle ground.
Exactly. Yeah. And we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
And I know you said they controlled somewhat for, the healthy lifestyle behaviors, but like you said, there's just so many other factors that that they didn't control for, you really can't control for, or that it's really difficult to control for, that you have to consider as well.
So and again, I will say they did not find statistical significance for the specific incidence of Alzheimer's disease, just for other related dementias. So, but there was a trend, so that there's room to grow this research, I think, and I do think it's very interesting. Oh,
absolutely, and it makes sense to me that they are powerful compounds like flavonoids, and so it's. That doesn't surprise me that that's something that they found a correlation between.
Yeah.
But, like you said, I think there's definitely room for more developments.
If anybody's interested in learning about flavonoids, one thing that I always found very interesting is that one of the major theories about why they're, maybe beneficial to our health, because they're found in a lot of these, like, fresh
plant foods,
plant foods, is that there's a theory anyway, and I don't know too much about it, but there's a theory that humans evolved alongside these foods and cultivated foods that were more likely to be beneficial to them as they were evolving. So we were, throughout time, through the development of agriculture, selecting the foods that were giving us the most
almost
benefits.
Like doing our own research, like through experience. Yeah.
Totally. This food makes me feel better. I'm going to plant more of these. Oh, this one batch was really tasty. I'm going to plant more of this batch. So there is this kind of theory. So if you're interested in that kind of evolutionary biology sort of thing, go check it out. Anyway, that was my brain bite.
I love that. That was super, super interesting. I found it really interesting. I'm sure everyone listening did too. That's I let us know, guys, what you think. We're thinking about trying to incorporate these brain bites more often.
I would enjoy doing them. There's a lot of nutrition and neuroscience stuff. So, and I can speak to the neuroscience a little bit. So I'd be happy to do
we definitely want to keep the BS of the week, I think, going as well. So maybe we'll alternate or something like that, because we're still, like, every week getting people sending in recommendations for BS of the week. So
and please keep sending them in.
So we'll figure out a way to incorporate both, and
please tell us if you like that.
Absolutely.
Or if you hated
we want
it.
your feedback. So now jumping into our second topic of this week's episode, and I'm sure you can tell from the title of the episode, we want to talk about diet culture red flags, or, diet culture in disguise. So things that you can look for, whether you're on social media or, you're looking for a gym to join or a fitness program to sign up for or anything like that. You're looking for a healthcare professional that works for you and your needs. These are some things that, you can look for, just, I guess, to kind of weed out if they're truly aligned with what you need. And so, assuming, you're listening to this podcast, it might be in line with kind of a non-diet approach. And we want to talk about this because the non-diet, anti-diet movement and intuitive eating and health at every size, these things have gained a lot of popularity in the last few years. And because of that, I think a lot of people recognize the term like diet culture, and they associate it with something, negative or something that people are speaking out against. But I'm not sure that everyone fully understands what it is and what it means. And same with non-diet, and same with intuitive eating and health at every size. And therefore, I think a lot of people also, because they're trendy, are using these terms or speaking out against them. They're co-opting them to, kind of further their business or sell things or whatever it is. And they may not necessarily actually be aligned with these things. And that, we're not pointing fingers. We're not saying they're bad. It may just be a misunderstanding. They haven't done enough research. So we just want to kind of point out some things that, we've seen floating around on social media, on other platforms that are, we've kind of noticed are a bit of a red flag in terms of, selling or helping people, and, maybe disguising themselves. They're saying they're anti-diet or, they're against diet culture, but then they're still promoting certain things that may be harmful to someone who's looking to get away from those things.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
I made a list myself of like things that I usually think of. Okay, so I wonder how much overlap we're
maybe we
have.
can like go back and forth like one and then the other. Yeah. So okay, you start.
I love that. Okay, so I think for me, one of the biggest red flags and I think of Instagram accounts, because when you go to Instagram and you look at someone's profile, it's kind of like judging a book by its cover. But it's a pretty important cover, I think, like if you're trying to tell people that you're going to be helping them with their health or nutrition, like I think it's pretty important to make a very good first impression. And so something that I usually think of that makes a bad first impression on me is when an account has like, they're advertising very few and very simple tips for better health that align with diet. So like when it's something like cut out this food, you know what I mean? Like a really, like you in their heads
something
is like
that's
a really
just super
easy
simple
and simple thing to do. Exactly. Like cut out bread. Like anytime I see an account that says like cut this out or start eating this, that always makes a bad first impression on me, because we've talked about it before, and Hannah, you talk about it a lot. It's like there is no cut and dry perfect diet for every single person. So whenever you make really whenever somebody makes generalized statements like that, like cut this out or add this or do this one thing for better health outcome, I always think, okay, so you're not really, at least to me, you're not showing that you understand that there can be nuance in taking care of your health.
That's such a good one. That reminds me of, on TikTok for a little while, I was like duetting or like responding to people's like weight loss tips on TikTok. They'd create videos saying like, this is what I did to lose the weight. And they, so like giving other people tips on how to lose weight or on how to be healthy or whatever it was that they were talking about. And I would duet them and just be like, this is, the caption would be like dietitian reacting to so-and-so's health tips or something. And one of them, just that I remember, was this guy who had lost a lot of weight, and he was sharing, how he lost the weight. And he had like a bunch of videos with just like pointers of like what he did exactly to lose the weight. And this one specifically was like I think there was like a couple, legitimate tips, like he was exercising regularly, things like that. But then there was like one tip that he like shared, and it was like, cut out all potatoes. And I was just like, what? Like, and it was just like, get rid of potatoes. And I was like, why? Like, that is like, okay, that, you might have cut out potatoes because maybe you were eating potatoes like in ridiculous amounts or in excess. And therefore you lost weight. But it's like, people don't have to fear potatoes or like eliminate potatoes just to lose weight. I don't know. So that's what it reminds me of.
Often they're like a really, really affordable source of like
right.
good
Absolutely.
carbs. Like,
yeah.
It makes sense for a lot of people to be eating potatoes. They can be really readily
Yeah.
available year round, and they're really
Yeah.
affordable generally. That I don't like when people, especially, like if someone says, I would be shocked, but if somebody started saying like cut out chia seeds, I'd be like, okay, for once we're like going after the really expensive foods that people
Yeah.
already can't afford. But when people say like cut out pasta or like cut out potatoes, it's like often that's what a lot of people can afford, and it's actually a source
Absolutely.
of like,
Absolutely.
really good
It's just like the foods
macronutrients.
that get demonized. I don't know, over and over again. Traditionally, potatoes,
Yeah.
white bread, things like that. Canned products. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
staples
I
that are
agree.
really
Yeah.
affordable.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is my first one. This is a bit of a red flag for me. Someone who says that they promote intuitive eating, but then I put air quotes because, anyways, someone that's. Yeah.
If you're watching on YouTube, you would
Someone
have seen
says
those
they
air
promote
quotes.
intuitive.
You can also see my terrible
It's okay.
goatee. Sorry, Hannah, keep going.
Someone says they promote intuitive eating, but then also preach the importance of portion control. And maybe they even share like graphics on social media or videos showing you what a true tablespoon of peanut butter is versus like a big spoonful. Like,
Yeah.
so
okay,
like they're saying like you can eat whatever you want,
Yeah.
but you have to measure it out. Or you can listen to your body,
So,
but
obviously-
only if you eat like a specific
Yeah.
tablespoon of peanut butter.
I'm not, obviously, everybody listening knows, I always bring up, I'm not a health professional, I'm not a dietitian, but I feel that's why, but I also have no shame in asking questions because, like, Hannah's such a good teacher and I obviously want to learn. To me, that's kind of saying, like, I hate these tips because it's assuming that you can very quickly make a big change that's going to, like, quote, beneficially
Yeah.
affect your health. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, Hannah, but like just like starting out doing extreme portion control is a
I
form of
agree.
restriction.
Yeah.
And it's not something that's going to be sustainable. And it really absolutely does, as you're saying, does not align with the like
Right.
principles of intuitive eating. And in fact, the principles of intuitive eating, I think, absolve people of trying to change anything quickly at all. In fact, it's supposed to be a very slow
Yeah.
process where
You're
start becoming more comfortable with the
Yeah.
way that you eat already, like destigmatizing yourself, and then gently learning more about nutrition
Absolutely.
and incorporating other healthy lifestyle practices. It's not about quickly making a
seeing
change
results.
overnight.
Yeah.
Okay, today is day 0. I'm going to start measuring tablespoons, and then everything's going to be okay. I mean, that's the first step to starting an unsustainable
Yeah, and I
behavioral change,
totally
right?
agree with that. And I want to, so kind of like what you said, I heard someone describe intuitive eating like gathering data about your body and your likes and dislikes related to food and what makes you feel good, and then using that data to like inform your decisions moving forward. And it's like it's such a slow process to gather this data. You're not from the start just like eating intuitively perfectly, and you're over time you're gathering this data and you're
we haven't talked about that enough, but that is a really good point. I think it's like, and we're so obsessed, like our culture in general, so obsessed with
absolutely.
quick and fast.
Results,
like we want
yeah.
immediate results for everything, that maybe people are not passionate about or motivated by things that we're telling them up front are going to be slow, incremental things. But that's such an important part of it.
And I think that intuitive eating also gets, because it is associated with health and it's considered like an evidence-based, healthy eating practice or pattern, people just assume that it's automatically because we as a society just like associate health with weight loss, they assume that intuitive eating is also a weight loss practice, when I'm not saying everyone does this, but a lot of people do. And they're like, oh, intuitive eating, like it must help me lose weight if all these dietitians are saying that it's health promoting. And then they do it and they don't lose weight, or maybe even they gain weight. And then it's like, fuck this. Like, I tried intuitive eating and it didn't work for me. And it's like, actually, intuitive eating isn't a weight loss diet at all. It's not. No one's promising weight loss from intuitive eating. And I also want to say, kind of in line with that, I recognize not all healthcare professionals and not all wellness influencers are in line with intuitive eating, and they don't identify with non-diet approaches to health and wellness. And it doesn't necessarily make them bad, but I don't know. I think it's just important to say that as well. Like, we're not calling out those people necessarily, but we're just kind of identifying like we said, people co-opting these things, co-opting non-diet approaches and co-opting intuitive eating, but then actually promoting or perpetuating things that aren't in line with that.
Well, maybe I'm going to say something controversial, but I think in line with that, like, it doesn't faze me if somebody wants to lose weight. Like, you want to lose weight, like, okay, like, that's not my problem. The problem is that people who are stigmatizing weight gain and promoting fat phobia.
Yeah.
That is the problem. And promoting diet practices that are ultimately going to be harmful because they're going to affect your health in a negative way.
Yeah, I agree. This is something that, like, non-diet dietitians face a lot, is like people thinking that if they want to lose weight, like, non-diet dietitians are super against them or that they don't like them. That's not it at all. Like, people, like, non-diet dietitians absolutely understand that a lot of people want to lose weight. And exactly. But I think that they recognize that, and they'll talk to you, and they'll, a lot of times it's just like weight loss is not an outcome of focus for non-diet dietitians. Like, it might happen, but it's not something that we're going to, like, praise and then condemn if it doesn't happen, right? So
right, exactly.
Anyways, I don't know where I was going with that. Now I'm all over the place, but
no, that's okay. That was really good. I can go.
Sure, go ahead.
Next red flag. So another red flag that I'll have is these people who are promoting whatever form of, like, health with relation to nutrition are giving out tips or, I don't know, talking about some sort of principle or guideline, but don't link a study, for example, or don't link a guideline that's approved by, let's say, like, the Dietitians Association of Canada. Is that what it's called?
Dietitians of Canada, yeah.
Dietitians of Canada, you know what I mean? It's just like something that is anecdotal that maybe they have experienced throughout their life and has worked for them in whatever way, and that's all the evidence they are willing to provide.
Right. Oh yeah, that's huge red flag. I love that.
Yeah.
I've seen that all the time. Like, just, it's frustrating. That's definitely something as a dietitian, and I think all dietitians, whether you're, whether you identify with certain movements or not, I think all dietitians can kind of say that that's something that's a huge red flag. It's just people giving anecdotal advice or saying that, this worked for me, and a lot of times, unfortunately, it's hard to, like, combat, but a lot of times I see people saying, like, they give a disclaimer and they say, I'm going to give my tips for whatever for this, but keep in mind, this is what worked for me. So it may not work for you. But then they go on to say, don't eat this, don't eat that, like, only shop in this area of the grocery store, things like that. And it's like, why the disclaimer if you're still going to go on to, like, say, do this, do that, don't do this, do that? Like, I don't know.
I think that's an interesting point, because it reminds me, like, something that's almost even worse is that when somebody, and I've seen this so many times, and I know you've seen it, we've actually talked about this, when they link a really bogus study and that's what they use as their evidence, and they're obviously not taking a holistic approach to understanding the
very
literature
biased
about whatever
approach.
topic they're promoting. Exactly.
Yeah, that's difficult as well. And sometimes and I mean, I'm not like, I'm frustrated with how my skills at evaluating the literature, and I'm not the best. I'm saying that right now, but sometimes it's not. It may not necessarily. Sometimes it is a bias, but sometimes it's just also a lack of understanding of how to like evaluate the literature properly.
Though, I think both of us have really bettered our skills in that regard.
Totally, through the podcast. Yeah.
Like, and through we talked about this at the beginning, is like the podcast was going to be a learning experience for us, and it totally has been. I think I've become a way better. I've been able to gain more critical skills when analyzing nutrition.
Absolutely.
Literature that I didn't have before, and I know I still have room to grow.
Absolutely, me too. Okay, next one. Okay, so something that says all foods fit, and it's kind of similar to the first one, but in moderation. So like you can eat whatever you want, but only in these amounts. Sure. I think that's like, I don't know, it's just putting limitations on like the all foods fit approach. It's like you can, and it's usually people like, I don't know, to me that almost makes it like all foods don't fit. Like, I don't know, if you can't freely enjoy a food like to the point of satisfaction, like if you have to set a limit on how much of it you can eat, and like, so say you have a piece of chocolate and you're not satisfied, but that's the limit that was like set out for you. To me, that's like all foods don't fit, because you can't eat that food to satisfaction and actually enjoy it. You're just like eating it to say all foods fit, but I don't know. Totally. Yeah, that one, I see that a lot.
It's also like, it kind of erases the idea that this sounds kind of like wishy-washy, but there's so many different seasons of life. Like, since I've been studying for the exam that I just had, like, health and nutrition was not a priority for me. Like, really, like, and I'm not saying that's, like, something like everybody, like, don't do that. Like, obviously prioritize your health and your nutrition, but in that time, I just found it so difficult and so stressful to think about
absolutely
prioritizing those things. So I really wasn't approaching health and nutrition from a perspective that I usually would like to, and I definitely saw like I'm feeling sluggish, I'm feeling tired, like I don't feel active or fit, like, but I don't know, my priorities were elsewhere. So the ways in which you consume foods definitely are affected by different things in your life, and that can change over time. And it's okay.
I totally agree. I love that term, like seasons of life, and I use it a lot. That like there's just different times in your life where you might not.
Satisfaction can mean different things.
Yeah, and you might not have healthy eating at the forefront depending on what's going on in your life during a certain week or a certain month, and that's okay. And I think it always comes down to like health and wellness, what you're doing most of the time versus what you're doing like one specific week or 1 month out of the year. It's really what you're doing most of the time. So if there's a period in your life where you have a sick family member and you're taking care of them, and so you're not necessarily taking as much care of yourself, like that's, and I've mentioned this before, that's almost intuitive, because it's just what's the priority at that time. And so that's totally okay. And I don't think it's something, to feel bad about or anything like that. Yeah.
It definitely, I'm so not perfect at intuitive eating or like the principles behind like removing stigma from myself, but it really is an ongoing process for me.
Yeah, for sure.
One other thing that is a red flag, like really big red flag for me, and I'm surprised like some people don't see it as a red flag maybe, is when someone says like scientists and doctors are trying to hide this one tip from everybody.
Oh yeah, this one thing that they don't tell you. They won't recommend
this because it's like, it's like too controversial, but it definitely works.
Oh yeah.
It also makes me think of like kind of in line with that red flag is the person who's giving the advice is not an RD or a physician.
That's like, a red flag.
For me, anyway, that's like a big red
totally.
flag. If I'm specifically trying to take nutrition advice from somebody, I want them to be accredited for giving that advice.
Totally. I agree with that. I've seen people give advice on like food intolerances and elimination diets and things like that, and they have no credentials whatsoever, and that's a huge red flag. I mean, absolutely, as a dietitian, as soon as I see someone giving nutrition advice and they don't have any credentials, it's a red flag. And I don't know, I feel like that may not be the case for a lot of people who just don't know that, anyone in certain provinces and states can call themselves a nutritionist, and
Right.
anyone can Google something and then start telling other people about it. And I just,
Right.
it's crazy to me that that reminds me of the medical medium, and like this man has
Yeah.
no fucking credentials, and he has
I can't believe someone like that
millions
exists.
of followers, and people eat that shit up. They eat every word he says up, and they follow everything he says to a T. And it's like, this man has no scientific training, no, he's not a healthcare professional, nothing. And I don't know, that it blows my mind, but
I cannot believe it.
it's crazy. Okay, let me see, let me look at my list here. Oh, okay, this is a good one. Anything with the word reset. Reset. Have you never heard that?
No, like what? Like reset your body or something?
Yes, like sign up for my 30-day reset, or sign up for my 4-week reset. You're resetting your life. You're resetting your nutrition. I don't get it. The one time that I've seen an okay use of the word reset was a non-diet dietitian created, and I think she almost did it to oppose other resets, but she did a body image reset, and it was reframing your mindset around your body and things like that.
You're almost describing detox.
Right. That's no. They're to me, they're synonymous. It's you might as well use the word detox, reset, detox, whatever. You're resetting your system. You're resetting it just, to me, it sounds like 30 days of quote unquote clean eating and no sugar and blah blah blah.
Well, it also sounds like 30 days of sitting in a puddle of your own shame.
Yes. Yes.
Your whole life you've been a sinner.
Yes.
This
We need to
30 days
reset.
now. You fix yourself. Yeah.
Fuck, I hate that. I hate reset. I hate it. Okay. Oh, it's your turn.
That reminds me. This is my last one
Okay.
that I have. You mentioned this a little bit, but when the messaging is associated with a product that you have to purchase in order to benefit from the advice, that is a huge red flag for me. We talked about that when we talked about the F Factor diet. And how they sell their own crackers or whatever. And so many other diets do the same thing. So many people online are sponsors of some sort of awful diet culture product that they want you to buy in order to benefit from whatever tip they're giving you. So that they can make a commission.
That reminds...
You shouldn't have to pay your way to health.
I agree. That reminds me of a lot of the multi-level marketing businesses like Arbonne. They have their 30-day healthy living challenge or something like that. And basically it's 30 days of using Arbonne products. You have...
What's Arbonne?
It's Arbonne.
Is that makeup?
I think it used to be makeup. It is makeup. But now they have nutrition products.
Do you know what I don't understand about multi-level marketing things? There's one that's spices or seasoning, and I'm like,
oh, is it Epicure?
Have you been to?
I don't
have
know
you
much
been to
about
the
that.
store? They have that.
Yeah, you can buy that at the store.
I've been buying that stuff for years. I don't understand. I guess for some things there's some multi-level marketing things are selling products that you can't buy at stores, whether or not it's shampoos or whatever.
Right. Yeah, it's not in store. Again,
I'm not into that, but they're not found at the store. But it's buy Cajun spice.
It's you can get that.
They have Cajun spice at the store. I don't need to buy it from you. I don't get it. I don't know. What is the draw?
I don't know. No idea. No fucking clue. I'm saying at the F word a lot in this episode.
Well, I mean, it's so confusing.
It's over my head for sure. Okay, I have a couple more, so I'll run through them quickly. Okay, so this is a big one, but basically, if it has to convince you it's not a diet, it's probably a diet. So if they're like, it's not a diet,
sure.
it's a lifestyle change, it's probably a diet.
Sure.
Okay, anything that requires you to like count anything. So whether it's macros, calories, vegetables, almonds, grams of sugar, like that's a red flag for me. Like if you have to count things out or measure things out to a T, that's a red flag. And then this one, okay, sorry, I just saw one that I skipped over. Anything that like, again, kind of like it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle, but it's like claims like no fad diets or no gimmicks here, but then like goes on to like make you track calories or like make you, cut out certain foods. One similar, particularly that comes to mind, I don't know if you've heard of it, but Noom.
Oh, yeah. The psychologist recommended way of weight loss. Eat 700
It's all about behavior change.
Things instead of one brownie. And you'll feel so full and happy.
Yeah. And basically, I haven't looked too much into it, but like I know that their marketing is all around like psychology-based behavior change and by psychology-based weight loss and like totally not a diet. And like they actually like have somehow like use keywords like intuitive eating and non-diet and things like that, so that like when you Google non-diet something or Noom comes up as like one of the first things, which is crazy. But basically from other dietitians, I've heard that essentially it's like calorie tracking and like tracking all your food. Yeah. So yeah,
they're trying to move you away from like calorie dense foods to I don't know, non-dense foods, and that's somehow supposed to make you feel more satisfied.
Exactly. That actually reminds me, and I was going to talk about this as like one specific point, but I watched this YouTube video the other day because it just for some reason it came up as like something recommended for me to watch, and I have no idea why. Actually, maybe I do know why. One of my
YouTube recommendations are like, if you belong to like one political party, YouTube recommendations are like, come to the other side.
Oh, really?
That is what YouTube recommends. You don't know, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like YouTube recommendations are like, this is what you've been watching, like, come over here. Like, let me
maybe. Well,
like, totally.
I think it actually might be because one of my really good friends, Liv, is a vegan YouTuber, and I was watching some of her videos, and then I got like a recommendation to watch this.
Just like carnivore videos.
I got a recommendation to watch another vegan YouTuber's video, and it popped up, and it was like, I did this one thing and I lost 20 pounds. So I was like, okay, let me give this, like, let me see what the hell this is.
You took your clothes off?
And basically this YouTuber went on to say that like the one thing she did was eat every single meal she made sure at every single meal half of her plate was vegetables. Which is like, okay, like, you know.
People have been saying that.
But then she like went into like how it's all about caloric density and like and I was like, okay. And then, but then when she went to explain caloric density, and it like technically it's right, but she was like, caloric density is basically how many calories per pound of food. And then for the rest of the video, she literally just referred to every food like as like calories per pound.
Per pound of broccoli.
But she was like, so you could eat, she was like, you could eat Ezekiel bread, and it's like 1,200 calories per pound. And I was like,
okay.
Who eats a fucking pound of Ezekiel bread?
That's so funny.
What the hell?
Per metric ton of grapes, you'll be consuming this many
I was just like, so like she, like that's how she was determining what foods like were good and bad, like how many calories they were per pound.
I love that. I love that.
Anyways,
I love that.
So, but the thing that pissed me off is that like she was like, so yeah, really, like you don't have to do any like crazy counting or cut anything out. And she was like, oh, she like rolled her eyes and she was like, oh, diet culture.
Yeah, don't worry about counting or what a diet culture is like. Just look at per pound how many calories your food.
Anyways, I was just like, I cannot. Like, I was like, I need to talk about this because this is ridiculous. Anyways,
yeah.
So that was my last one. hopefully.
I just wanted to say really quickly, like, I think for me, the major thread between everything that we were talking about with the red flags is that taking care of your health is not there's no quick fix, and it should be an extended conversation that hopefully you're having with an accredited professional like a dietitian or a physician. And it's not something that, like, at least from what I've learned from the research and what we talked about on the podcast, it's not something that you start on day 0 and then, like, from then on, like, your life is going to be absolutely perfect moving forward and you're going to have the exact outcomes you want. It's a really extended conversation that involves, I don't know, work and effort, and anyone who's trying to sell a quick fix is just trying to make a buck most of the time.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I hope this guys gave you some things to kind of look out for when you're on social media and anywhere else, at a certain gym, or, you're looking to sign up for some sort of fitness program or something like that. Hopefully these things can give you, just some keywords and things to look for that, might actually not be what you're looking for. If a non-diet approach to health and wellness is something that you are looking for.
Nobody should be shamed for like the dietary practices that they are.
I agree.
That they practice.
I agree. For sure. All right. Well, Tarek, what's been tasty for you this week?
Well, what's been tasty for me this week? I made 2 chocolate ganache almond crust.
They looked amazing.
Tarts. Thank you. I made one for a physically distant family dinner that I had, and then I made one for a physically distant family dinner of Thomas's that I had. And it was good, and it was fun. And it was just nice to have, like, kind of a little bit of a luxurious dessert.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it looked amazing. It looked so good. Did you have a physically distant dinner with, like, the McIsaacs?
Yeah.
When?
Oh, did you not know? We had dinner on Monday.
Oh, I'm so sad.
Oh, I'm so
sorry.
It's okay. I thought we told you.
No, I didn't. I don't. Maybe you told Pat. I didn't know. Aw, I'm sad that we missed it.
We miss you. I mean, the whole time I was just thinking.
I know.
The podcast was born on that patio.
It was. You're so right. Yeah.
For everybody listening, close your eyes. Think of a
Betty Ann's patio deck.
That's where the Betty Ann's patio. That's where the podcast.
It was. Yeah. I love that. You're right. We were sitting there in those chairs, and we were like, "Are we starting a podcast?" It's like on. Did you ever watch Step Brothers?
No.
And it's like, did we just become best friends? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, are we starting a podcast? Or...
You know what's funny about that is we said, are we starting a podcast? And then we actually did.
Yeah, we did. We totally did.
How many times have I
been talking
to somebody and we're like, are we doing this project? Like, yeah, we're so amped. And
I know, totally. Happens. Yeah. Aw.
Anyway, so Hannah, what's been tasty for you this week?
What's been tasty for me this week is, it's simple, but basil pesto. I love pesto. Do you love pesto?
Oh, I love pesto.
I could eat pesto with a spoon.
Unsubscribe if you don't love pesto.
Yeah, totally. It's like I don't know what it is about. I guess maybe it's just like the garlic and the olive oil and the fresh basil blended up, and like, oh my God, Parmesan cheese. Like, that's all the things I love in a sauce.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And if people can't find pine nuts, you can use other
Oh my God, yeah.
nuts
I use walnuts, I use
pesto.
pumpkin seeds or pepitas, whatever you call them.
I've used peanuts before.
God.
Peanuts are full of oil. What? No, it tastes
really?
good.
It didn't taste like peanut butter?
Yes. No.
Okay.
Don't yuck my yum.
I'm sorry. For some reason, peanuts, like, I just feel like they have a specific taste. Like a lot, like walnuts are pretty mild, pecans are pretty mild, but I feel like peanuts are very, like, I don't know.
You know what I've made before? I've made kale pesto with peanuts.
Oh, see, I'm getting turned off by the peanuts. I'm okay with kale, but I put spinach in my pesto along with the basil. But
No, you're right. Pesto is amazing. Pesto's so good. Like, especially, you know what I love? I love a pizza without tomato sauce.
Oh,
but
me
with pesto.
too. I think I would rather have pizza with pesto.
Love,
Yeah.
love.
Also,
love that even more than a white
I have
pizza.
one tip that I learned. It's kind of like super not classy, but it's a
Doctors are avoiding telling you this one tip about pesto.
the one thing,
Scientists don't want you to know about this
the one
thing about
tip
pesto.
that scientists don't want you to know.
The one pesto tip.
I learned this from a friend actually when I was in my dietetic internship. But she would, to her pesto pasta, when she was adding the pesto, she'd add like a big spoonful of cream cheese and mix it all in together. So it was like,
Yum.
it's so
Oh my
good. It's
God.
like a creamy pesto sauce.
Silky dream.
Yeah.
Oh
It's
my
so good.
God.
It's like super, again, like I said, it's like not classy. You just like whip out a spoonful of cream cheese. But
I'm also just like, I haven't had cream cheese in 7,000
Why?
years. I don't know. I don't buy
we
it.
buy it every week. I eat it all the time.
What do you put it on?
Bagels?
What do you put it on? Okay.
Bagels, bread. I put it in my pesto pasta.
Patrick made pesto pasta on St. Patrick's Day. I don't know. I'm sure you can
I
make
love
some
that.
sort of tongue twister. with that.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I guess that concludes the episode.
I just want to do a quick shout out because we promised we were going to start doing this and we hope we get more.
Oh, yes.
live_for_my_music. Oh my God. That username rolls off the tip of my tongue. It's, sometimes you see something and you're like, I've never witnessed such beauty before. And I
That
just
username.
love that username, live for my music. So they say, love Hannah and Tarek deal with such common diet culture topics with so much grace. Oh my, okay. You're obsessed with me. Thank you. So informative and delivered with compassion. Thank you, Live for
That's
My
so
Music.
sweet.
And I hope that music is, I don't know, Green Day, because that's what I like. And I hope that's what you like too.
I'm nodding. Yes. Oh, I love that. That's so sweet. Yeah, if you haven't, please leave us a rating and a review. Follow us on our social pages. And
Watch on YouTube, because it's just getting weirder by the minute. I'm sitting on the ground of my living room because I don't have a desk in the living room anymore. The cats have absolutely been up in my business this whole time, but I've stayed professional. Eyes at the camera.
you have. Yeah, I
not
didn't even
bothered,
notice the
pretending
cats.
like nothing's
Yeah.
happening. Pretending like nothing's happening. That's the kind of professional quality podcasting that you get out of this.
Yeah, and if you guys follow us and watch on YouTube, you can see my period sweater and my new blue light blocking glasses.
And if you use offer code NOBS at you get those blue light blocking glasses for free. And if you didn't catch that website that I just said, it's because I didn't say one, because we don't have a sponsorship with an eyeglass company.
One day.
But I'm absolutely willing to sell out for that. But I will not promote blue light blocking glasses for a health outcome because there is no clinical evidence.
I agree.
Sorry to burst that bubble, everybody who's listening.
I honestly, I will say I did not buy them for any sort of health outcome. I bought them because I wanted a pair of glasses to wear.
Do you know what you know what I love? My favorite glasses are, so we have to end this episode. But I love there's glasses that are called HD glasses, you can see in HD.
What the hell?
You've been seeing in the most HD that you can see your entire life if you have corrective lenses, whatever glasses these are, they're not HD. Anyway, on that note, I absolutely love Roxanne Gay. Leave us a review, subscribe, like this on YouTube, tell your parents about it, tell your little sibling about it. Tell your cousins about us, okay? People aren't talking to their cousins enough these days, and I'm worried about that. People aren't talking to their cousins. So thank you for that. We love you, and live for my music. We are waiting for that next review. I need to know what music you're listening to. Is it jazz? Do you listen to rumba? Okay, I've got to go because I had an energy drink and it's really coming through now. And I really should have maybe had it half an hour earlier because the podcast would have been a really different experience. On that note, we're signing off. We love you so much.
Bye, guys.
Okay. Bye.